live now. Okay.
Yeah, we're live.
Is that an accident? You just accidentally went live?
No, we're supposed to do it before the tournament starts anyway.
Oh, okay. So there's nobody watching.
Not yet.
Okay.
So stick all your VeggieTale favorites now. I just want to play it a portrait of
I don't need a fork or a spoon. I don't need a tissue.
When my nose is ready, just give me a plate with a fork and a bunny.
Oh yeah, just give me a plate, a fork, and the bunny.
Oh, Steven, do you know the cheeseburger song?
What?
You worked at Wendy's. You should know it.
I
He
don't
said
know.
to her, "I'd like a cheeseburger.
Tails was a little bit.
I might like a milkshake as well."
I wasn't raised as a Christian, so I don't know any VeggieTales.
And VeggieTale's not really Baptist approved, like independent fundamental Baptist.
Yeah, but I mean, if you've been.
It's better than the newer stuff where they change the animation.
If you claim the name of Christ, you need to watch.
No, what's that?
That was like before
Is it-
VeggieTales. It was a donut. It was a Christian donut.
Sorry, we weren't really Christian.
No, I like.
We watched
G.I. Joe.
Real American Hero.
Greatest American hero.
Greatest. Okay, sorry.
I have to look
You
up
can
the-
tell I didn't watch it.
Well, now you know. No one's happy about it.
Let's see. Life is like a hurricane here in Duckburg. Race cars, lasers, airplanes. It's a dark blur. Lights all a mystery or rewrite history. DuckTales. Woo! All right, I'll be back. I'm gonna go.
Jenny. Now my daughter.
My favorite was Tower of Babel. See, I didn't have all of them, but I have the Have you seen the Love and Small Things? A lot of them.
I'll be back.
Gloria, can you clean up?
I can go get There's a water bottle up here. I don't know if she does it by the hour. Well, she does a lot of kids better. She does neuroceptions and playing like that. She's she does drinks, but she drinks out of them like a cup. So she has two of them. Water and a straw. You want to drink? If she gets fussy, I might go down like during the teaching and get a snack. Right. We ate before we came here, so she should be okay. That good? The only thing I have is a thing. Let me see, I might have squished them, but here, this is all I have. Those are crackers. Do you want those? Do you want some crackers? Let me open them. I've been buying Simple Treat organic animal crackers for yourself in 6-pack. So I tell her, when we go to the car seat that we don't cry, you want that. I feel for her because the car seat isn't fun. It's just a process, and sometimes the car's hot, so I don't feel bad getting her.
All right. How long we been live? Probably like.
Not too long.
10 minutes.
No, it's been long. We sang the better till song.
Brought to you by Nutter Butter.
Steven, is there going to be a PowerPoint?
Yeah.
I brought him cereal. He ate Nutter Butter just for breakfast on Sunday, like 2 weeks ago.
I think we're ready. Testing 1, 2.
Steven, is there a PowerPoint? No.
Dory, could you, well, I think somebody else is coming. I'm gonna have to shut that door to keep things. Can you shut that door behind you? Thank you. Just keeps the cool air in. Steven gets all hot and hot air coming from up here. We want the air conditioner on. All right, I think we got just about everybody up here. Without any further ado, tonight we have Stephen's going to preach part 2 of his earlier message on Christians owning and carrying guns and weapons. And I'll say from the outset that I endorse his basic premise. And I hope that if there's anybody out there, I got a few messages from people who are a couple of people are pretty nasty about it. If you can't refute what's being said from the Bible, then save your I was going to say save your breath, but save your your or your data. Save your data. The Bible's clear, but he covered a lot of territory and he didn't cover it all. And so he mentioned doing a part 2, and I said, you ought to cover it all, man, hit it all. So come on up here, Stephen, and give us what for.
Good, Steven. Steven.
Well, like Greg said, there was just a lot of material that I had to skip, and we actually, I noticed in the editing that we had to just cut off a whole bunch just because I went way too long.
7 minutes.
Yeah, that was a crucial 7 minutes. And I had to cut off a whole bunch too. So I'm gonna go over what I went over the ending a little bit more. Is this close enough? I just have to adjust this because I'm too tall. Okay. Okay. So what I'm going to do here, I didn't see any of those nasty letters or anything like that, so else I might have wrote a little bit differently. But one of the big things is one of the big things that I thought of that an argument against Christians carrying firearms and using firearms or weapons is that for this dispensation. So as a dispensationalist, you have to say, well, are we in a dispensation where you need to protect yourself with guns, or is that just in other dispensations? So you have to be careful about that, and so we're going to cover a little bit of that tonight. And basically what I wrote is just 7 quick Bible verses that will help you in your argument for owning and arming yourself. So, and actually, Mariah and I, we're going to go on vacation here pretty soon. Not vacation, but my mom's birthday, we're going to go flying down to North Carolina and then flying back. And I took 1 extra day off, so I'm going to do a 3-day weekend. So we're going to fly with a toddler down to North Carolina. So that's going to be like 8 hours of traveling. And then we're going to spend basically 1 whole day down in North Carolina, and then we're going to fly with a toddler back up to Ohio. And one of the things that I thought of was, well, gee whiz, do I want to take my gun on the airplane? Because, there's a crucial amount of time. And I don't know, have you guys ever flown with a firearm?
Not yet.
I'm the only one so far. You've flown with a firearm, okay. So with a handgun, it's pretty easy. You just put it in a little case and it goes really well. I've done it several times. You just have to go to the checkout counter and declare your firearm. And what I recommend you go to the airline's website do exactly what they say, because I went to one airline and they were lax on their rules. And this was after 9/11 and everything. They were completely lax on their rules. And then I went to another airline and they were very strict, and it caused problems. We almost missed the flight because we had to go dump all our ammunition and all that kind of. My brother and I, we both flew with guns. And you can fly with guns. I don't know if you knew that or not, but you can fly with guns as long as you declare them. So it's, you know, you're supposed to do that. They have to go in the baggage compartment. You don't get to carry your gun with you on the airplane. But so one of the questions that I had was, we're going to do this. We got to turn around very quick. We go down to North Carolina, and then we're going to jump in a car and leave very quickly. So one of the things that I wanted to do was just have carry-on bags. I didn't want to have to go stand in, like you guys have flown before, where you got to go stand there and you're waiting for the baggage person to put your bag on the little belt, and you look up at the clock and it's like an hour after you've landed. And believe me, I know a guy who works at the airport. They work very, very hard, but just the volume, you know, you're always the last person to have your bag come off the conveyor belt. It's always like that.
Yeah.
So that's just the way it is. It's, you know, it's a catch-22 or something like that. I don't know, but it's the devil. That's what it is. Anyway, so I was thinking, I'm not going to fly with my gun. I'm not going to go through the hassle of checking it in. And sometimes they do it last. They give you your firearm last because they actually have to give you your firearm. They don't just put it on the little conveyor belt. Some airlines do. They just put it on the conveyor belt and they're like, whatever. But sometimes the guy walks out and says, "Are you Steve Miller?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm the only one here." He's like, "Can I see your ID?" He's like, "Nope, just give me my bag." Because that's what the federal government requires. You put it on the belt. That's what they said, put it on the belt. So I take my property and I leave the airport. So but the issue was, should I go through the hassle of doing that? But then I thought, you know, especially after doing this study, I have a 2-year-old, and I have a wife, and I was actually, before I sat down and did this study, that I was not going to fly with my gun. I wasn't going to do it just because of the hassle. But now I'm convinced that I would be going against God if I didn't. I would be. It's a thing where after doing this study, I'm convinced that I would be not right with God if I did that. So I'm actually commanded, we're going to see that, where I'm commanded to protect my wife, to protect my child. It's a command in the Bible. So it's going to get just, you know, so we're going to see that. So turn to Genesis chapter 14. Go to verse 14. We'll get into it. But you're commanded to protect the weak. But we'll see. This is a story about Abram, and what happened here. This is actually. I don't know if you guys have ever read Genesis or read this story before, but basically what happened was basically Lot, Abram's brother's son. It's Abram's brother's son, right? Yeah, Abram's brother's son. He was captured by this confederation, and then he was taken away, and this confederation of kings, and he was taken away, and Lot's land was taken away. And what happened was this confederation attacked Sodom and Gomorrah, and took Lot, and Abram found out about it, and so Abram did some stuff to get his guy back, and go to Genesis. We'll start in Genesis 14:14. It says, and when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. And he divided himself against them and his servants by night, and smote them, and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. So I want you to to see this, that Abram, now everybody knows Abram by his Jewish name, Abraham. Okay, and we know that later on, God made a covenant with Abram, and Abram circumcised himself, and he became Abraham. He became a Jew. So once you notice, it doesn't say Abraham, it says Abram. So this is before Abraham was Jewish. So this is actually, Abraham, in effect, was a Gentile at this time. God was speaking to a Gentile. So it has to be clear that this is a story about Gentiles, not Jews. And the distinction has to be made. It's for Gentiles in particular. So I want you to also notice that Abram had arms to arm his servants. Abram, a private citizen of the valley, just some dude, had at least 318 weapons of war. Okay, so when I hear people say, hey, should the man of God have an arsenal? Well, he has it right there. He has at least 318 weapons that could kill people in an efficient manner. Because, I mean, it doesn't say that he lost any men in this fight. So he had pretty good weapons. He had modern weapons. Okay, modern weapons. It's also, Abram had trained men. Trained and armed militia is the most base and fundamental force a people group can have. So you have, right now we have police. We have police that go out and around. Well, those police are trained, and but they're not the militia. The militia is actually everybody in this room. Okay, it's just the average person. A militia is a person who is just a private citizen. They can come and go into their military unit as they please. They don't have to be there. So if your house is being attacked or your land is being attacked, it's like, I always say, like, okay, well, if the, let's say if the Russians invade, let's say the Russians go down there and invade Virginia, they're going up there on Virginia, well, what's going to happen? Well, we're all going to go get our guns and go down there to Virginia and go kill some Russians. That would be the militia. But we don't have to go, and the military can't say you can't leave, because that would be the militia. So a militia is just a basic group of people, and that's what happened here. Abram armed his militia. Abram had a militia. The militia is the first line of defense from foreign invasion. The only way for a free people to have a trained militia is to have free people keep and bear arms. So they have to have, each individual person has to have a weapon. So if you don't have a weapon in your house, you can't go down to Virginia. You have to be issued a weapon. So then you're not part of the militia. So also, look up here in, if you go up to verse 18, let's go to verse 18. So this is what happened after this guy Abram attacked and destroyed these guys who captured Lot. And then up here in verse 18 it says, and Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and was the priest of the Most High God. And he blessed him, that's Abram, he blessed Abram, and said, blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be the Most High God, which hath delivered thine enemies into thy hand, and he gave him tithes of all. So what happened when Abram went off and killed a whole bunch of people to protect his family and to protect his home and to protect his brethren? The priest of the Most High God came down and blessed Abram. Amen. So he didn't say, hey, what are you doing? Why are you killing all these people? What he did was this in Genesis, before Abraham was a Jew, before he was circumcised, that's a key. Before he was circumcised, the priest of God came down and said, you're blessed for doing this. He didn't say you're cursed for doing this. He said you're blessed for doing this. So what have we learned from this? Or what we've learned from this is that Abram used self-defense and was blessed because of it. This is a self-defense action.
Right.
If somebody comes and kidnaps somebody, it's self-defense when you go after the attacker and get your person back. So that's self-defense. If somebody, I don't know, you guys probably seen that movie Taken?
Yes.
Yeah, everybody's seen Taken. Come on. Well, that was self-defense. That was when he went out and he got his daughter. That was self-defense. He defended his family. That guy had Taken. Now, when he then went on and killed the rest of them, that wasn't self-defense. That was vigilantism. So that has to be. That was vigilantism. So it may have been just, and it may have been what needed to happen, but that was still vigilantism. So you got a question?
Yeah, so what about, like, the incident that happened in Florida with the man getting shot?
That happens a lot. What are you talking about?
The parking space.
Stand your ground.
Oh, the
Stand your ground thing. Was that self-defense?
I don't know what specific case you're talking about.
A man got shot because of the parking space.
From the evidence, it looks like it wasn't. In if it's the one case that I'm thinking of, there was one case where it wasn't, even though he claims stand your ground, but that's just on a case by case. The bottom line is, if it's self-defense, it's right, and if it's not, it's not.
What happened was,
We're gonna.
this lady and this guy were arguing in a parking
Yeah.
lot.
That wasn't.
The guy,
Came out and pushed it.
the girl, woman's boyfriend came out, shoved him to the ground, nearly could have killed him. And the guy reached inside his pocket and pulled it out.
Yeah, that's wrong, because he had chances to get away,
Yeah.
and he was not. You have a responsibility that if you can, you're to get away. And if they're shooting at you, that's different. But
I know how I was trained was that if you basically have in Ohio, I don't know about Florida, but in Ohio you have what they call an obligation to retreat, but you don't have an obligation to retreat out of a safe area. So what do I mean by that? So like if you have an obligation, if you can get out of the situation, it's like, okay, so we're in a church, and if somebody comes through and they bust down your door with an AK-47 or something like that, I'm armed and there will be shots fired or whatever, but the first thing to do is to take cover and get out. So if you really, we're not, I want to get back to the Bible, but you gotta weigh your situation. So you do have an obligation to retreat, but we're retreated already. So when you're in your home, you're already retreated. So that's where you come into castle doctrine and stuff like that. Now when you're in your car, according to Ohio law, you're already retreated. You're retreated as far as you can go. But that doesn't mean that you can retreat with your car. You push on the gas and get out of there. Well, the problem is like if you're we've had situations like that where you're surrounded by protesters, you push on the gas and get out of there, you're going to kill somebody. So, there's situations like that. And yeah, if the guy's not, it's one of those things where you basically, that was most likely murder is what from the information from what you told me. I don't know the case, specific case.
As a Christian, we have a right to self-defense if we can't get out of the situation.
Yeah, I
mean, if we have an opportunity to get out of the situation,
there's a lot of state laws that don't line up with Christianity. Also, we're going to talk about that actually a little bit. There's actually in Exodus what the law says in Exodus versus what Ohio law says, and so that's point number 3. So write down Genesis 14:14. That's one of your verses, and then write down Nehemiah. We'll go to Nehemiah chapter 4, verses 10 through 18. So that's where we're going to go next. Yeah, specific cases I can't speak to because I'm not that well informed. I always tell people that you should keep up on your current events, and I just don't know about that case.
Chapter?
Nehemiah chapter 4. He's building a wall. Mariah and I were talking about the wall recently, the border wall. But here, Nehemiah is building a wall around Jerusalem. So in Nehemiah chapter 4, there's this dude named Nehemiah, and he's building a wall. I recommend you guys read the book. He's building a wall around Jerusalem, and there are some people who they don't want him to build the wall, and so there are external forces coming down and trying to attack the builders, the construction workers. So, and it has to be pointed out that these guys are just construction workers. They're building a wall. So it'd be like Charlie. He's an electrician. Charlie, does like electrical work and that kind of stuff. Runs wires. Yeah. He's an electrician. He's a construction worker. He's not a soldier. That has to be pointed out. So Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 10. It says, and Judah said, the strength of the bearers of the burdens is decayed, and there is much rubbish, so that we are not able to build the wall. And our adversaries said, they shall not know, neither see, till we come in the midst among them, and slay them, and cause the work to cease. So they want the work, these adversaries want the work to cease. Verse 12, it says, and it came to pass that when the Jews which dwelt by them came, they said unto us 10 times, from all places whence we shall return. From all places whence we shall return unto us, they will be upon you. So basically what's happening is they had some people come down and tell these Jews that told them 10 times that they're going to, these other guys are going to attack you. So the adversaries are going to attack the construction workers. So therefore, this is Nehemiah talking, it says, therefore said I in the lower places behind the wall, and on the higher places I even set the people after their families with their swords, their spears, and their bows, and I looked and rose up and said unto the nobles and to the rulers and to the rest of the people, be ye not afraid of them. Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible, and fight for your brethren, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your houses. So the property too. And it came to pass when our enemies heard, they didn't see because they weren't there, but they heard that it was known unto us, and God had brought their counsel to naught, that we returned all of us to the wall, every one unto his work. Now, if it stopped right there, they would have put all their weapons down, and they would have returned to their work, because they took weapons up. The enemies saw they took weapons up and were ready to fight, so the enemies, the adversaries didn't come and fight. So remember we talked about this doctrine of overwhelming firepower, where if you say, hey, I will fight you and we have the means to fight you, generally criminals or people like that will say, well, we're not going to fight them because they'll hurt us. So it's kind of like when like everybody watches Shark Week. When the shark attacks, and he rattles the cage, and then you kind of poke the shark. The guy in the cage will poke the shark. Well, the guy can't do anything. The shark will kill him. But he's in the cage. He pokes the shark. The shark goes away. Why? Because the shark's being poked. The shark could destroy the guy in the cage, but he doesn't want to get hurt. So it's like one time I was at the top of these stairs, and I was going to walk down these stairs, but there was this cat, and the cat was like, "Meow," and I was like, man, I don't want to walk past that cat. Well, I could have just kicked that cat down the stairs, no problem. But I was like, man, I'm scared. Well, if I kick the cat, he'll get my leg. He'll scratch me. Yeah. Or if I try and go by the cat, I just stayed upstairs. I was scared. I was scared of this little cat. Well, why? Because I didn't want to get hurt. So that's why you have like Mexico. I don't want to bash on the Mexicans. Canada. We'll bash on the Canadians. Canada.
Sorry, Ken.
Canada has an army, so they won't be invaded because they have an army. But the United States could invade Canada very easily and take all their stuff, but people would get hurt. Americans would die. United States citizens would die. The Canadians would hurt us. And so we don't. There's other reasons why we don't, but that's one of the reasons. So there's because we don't want to get hurt. So that's what happened here. These guys didn't want to get hurt. It's verse 17. They said, they which builded on the wall, and they that bear burdens, with those that laden, everyone with one of his hands wrought in the work, and with the other hand held a weapon. For the builders, everyone had his sword girded by his side, and so builded. And he that sounded the trumpet was by me, saying, Nehemiah was saying, this guy was by me. So they had, in one hand, they had they had their sword on them, and they had their weapon, and they had their plow also, where they had their shovel in the other hand. And actually it says, let's see, in verse 19 it says, and I said unto the nobles, and to the rulers, and to the rest of the people, the work is great and large, and we are separated upon the wall, one far from another. Oh, no, I don't need to read that. I'm sorry. We're talking about some administrative work here. But basically, so what's saying is that they had a shield in one hand, and they had a shovel in the other hand. They had a sword in one hand, and they had their pick in the other hand. So they had a tool in one hand, and then they had a weapon in the other hand. So they were able to defend themselves. And you got to keep in mind, these guys were construction workers. They were not soldiers. These guys were building the wall. So, and they had to defend themselves. We have in the military, in World War II, one of the things that they started, because they had, during the island hopping campaigns in the Pacific, they had what they called combat battalions, and they called them CBs, or CBs, as you might say. And these construction battalions. So these construction battalions, what they would do is they would have a rifle, and maybe they set the rifle down there, and then they would have a shovel over here. And when the enemy attacked, they'd put down a shovel, and they'd pick up the rifle, and they would defend themselves. And ever since then, all the construction workers that went into, whenever the military would build something, they would arm their construction workers. So if you went to, let's say you were going to become a Marine. Well, when you become a Marine, you do things like sort mail, clean toilets, you do things like fix trucks, and you build structures, you build stuff, or you fix things, you have administrative duties. So they teach those guys, they teach the mail clerks and the Marines, they teach the clerks how to kill people, because they need them to be able to put the mail down and pick up a rifle and defend themselves, or to attack something. Send the band off to war, that kind of thing. Put your instruments down and go attack. The same thing, the principle is here in Nehemiah. So, I'm sorry, I'm just reading over my notes. So, if you notice, let's see, Nehemiah instructs Nehemiah institutes the biblical principle of always being armed and ready to defend your people, your brothers, your sons, and your daughters, your wives, and your houses. God goes on to bless Nehemiah, and he blesses the Jewish people for what they did. And so once again, you have a blessing come down on these guys for defending their property. So that's Nehemiah chapter 4. There's the second verse. So go to Exodus 22. So verse number 3. It's going to be Exodus chapter 22, verse 2. Okay, so this is the law. So we're going to talk about God's law. So we talked about Nehemiah, who was under the law, and then we talked about Abram, who was not under the law. He was in a different dispensation. And so now we're going to talk about the law. So the law says, this is what God's law says. So this is what God instituted. So God's law, Exodus chapter 22, it says, if a thief be found breaking up and be smitten that he die, there shall no blood be shed for him. So keep that checked. Okay, so go back to Genesis chapter 9. So just remember that phrase, there shall no blood be shed for him. So what that's basically saying is that if a thief comes in and at night, and you kill the thief, no blood shall be shed for him. Now that seems kind of strange, but go back to, because the phrasing is a little weird, Genesis 9:5. Genesis 9:5, it says, and surely your blood of your lives will I require. This is talking about if you kill somebody. So surely your blood of your lives will I require. So what it's saying is that if you kill somebody, that's what's called murder. If you kill somebody, God requires your blood. Actually, he goes on to say that another man will take your life. So if you kill somebody, then the other man comes and kills you. And that's talking about the government. The government comes along. So like, let's say you murder somebody, the government comes along, finds out that you murdered somebody, they try you, and then they say, oh, okay, you murdered this person, well then you have to be killed for murdering somebody, because life is holy, and people's lives are holy. And you just can't kill people. So,
They don't do it that way nowadays.
yeah, well, I mean, obviously we're talking about the Bible. So people don't follow the Bible. So if the thief comes in, now this is an addendum. So in Genesis it says, hey, if you kill somebody, you're supposed to be killed. So then you have here in the law it says, well, if a thief comes breaking up and you kill him, if a thief breaks in at night and you kill the thief, that's on him. That's on the thief. You can go free. So that's what's called justifiable homicide. So in the Bible, it calls it justifiable homicide. There's actually a difference between homicide and murder. And the difference is murder is always unjustifiable. Then you have homicide, which can be justifiable or unjustified. So homicide is just a person being killed. Okay, but why did that person die? So did that person die because he's a thief and he breaks in and he might kill you after he breaks in, and then you kill him in the process of defending yourself? That's what's called justifiable homicide. So there's still somebody that died. It's still a tragedy, but it's not on you. That's a biblical principle that the state of Ohio follows to this day. They say separation of church and state. Well, then you shouldn't have murder be against the law if you want to separate church and state. So verse 3 actually, and that says, if the sun be risen upon him, that's upon the thief. So in other words, if he breaks in during the daytime, is what this is saying. If the sun be risen upon him, there shall be blood shed for him. So in other words, if you kill the thief in the daytime, you are liable for that. So like, I know, that's what the Bible says, but that's not Ohio law, this is the Bible. This is what it says in Exodus. So if a thief breaks in at night and you kill the thief at night, it's fine. If a thief breaks in the daytime and you kill the thief in the daytime, you're liable for that. You're going to have to pay for that. And the reason why is because he didn't scare you. He didn't catch you off guard. He caught you on guard. So if a thief breaks in, so that's what I see from that. If a thief breaks in and and you can retreat, get out of your house, get out of your house. It's a biblical principle right there in the law. It's a Christian principle in the law of Moses. If you can leave, leave. If you can get out of the situation, get out of the situation. So we if at all possible, what was the Bible say? If at all possible, be peaceable or live peaceably. As much as life in you, live peaceably. Yeah. So according to the law, you can't kill in the daytime. You can't have justifiable homicide in the daytime in your own home. So it's crazy. Well, it's not crazy, it's the Bible. So then go to, it's not crazy, it's the Bible. Okay, so that's the third verse. Go to Romans chapter 13, verse 1. So we're going to talk about America for a little bit because we're a little bit different than most countries. And you have to understand, these broadcasts go out to a lot of different people all over the world. And hopefully they speak English. If not, then have a translator or something like that, hopefully. But in America, we have a special situation. We have a special situation that there are a lot of Christians, and they rile me up because they don't understand that we, in America, the United States of America, we live in a constitutional government. It's a constitutional republic. It's democratically elected. Also, we have a democratic system, which is different than most of the governments in the Bible. And so they'll read, we get this a lot during election time, where you have this string of Christians who come along and they say, hey, you shouldn't vote because the Bible says that God, way back in Egypt, God changes the heart of the king and all that kind of stuff. So, and then I point out that we don't have a king. So whose heart is he changing? So there's a problem with that because we don't have a king. So there's no heart that can be changed, even if that special situation were to go on today. So Romans 13, chapter 13, verse 1 says, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. We're going to stop right there. In the United States, what is the highest power? Who has the highest power?
So, the Constitution.
Close. Both are close.
House,
The people.
Congress.
House of Senate, or something
Nope.
like that.
What's
Supreme Court?
what are the first three words of the Declaration of Independence?
We the people.
We the people, that's right. The Constitution is instituted by the people of the United States. Okay, we are the highest power. We the people. Not a president, not a Congress, not a constitution, not not a king. It's we the people. We the people get to decide what type of government we have. And we've decided that we want a constitutional republic. We can change that if we want to. We can go to a kingdom just like the Jews did. The Jews elected a king, and they suffered for it. So verse 1, so it says, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. So this constitutional democracy is ordained of God. That's what it's saying to the people. Wherefore, whosoever therefore resisteth the power, so resisteth the people. Whosoever resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God. So if the government resists the people, they resist the ordinance of God, because the people are the higher power. And they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works. In other words, we are the rulers, so we're not a terror to good works. So, because we live in a constitutional democracy. Most states these days, foreign powers, are democratic in nature, so this could apply to them also. Let's see, but to the evil. So, wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is the minister of God. Obviously, this is talking about a person at this time, calling he is the minister of God, but this could apply to us. We are the ministers of God, because we, the people, are the higher power in this nation. So he, that's you, is the minister of God. he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain, for he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Wherefore ye must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake. So, if you are a minister of God, it's because you're the higher power in this nation. It's clearly saying that you bear the sword, not in vain. So, as a minister of God, because we the people, it's clearly laid out in the Constitution that the people, the right of the people, we have the right to bear arms in the Constitution. It's clearly laid out in the Bible that in a democratic republic, that the people should bear arms. They are the ministers of God. Every single person in here is the minister of God, and every single person should vote just based on this. And every single person should have a weapon just based on this, because of the nature of the government that we're under. If we were under a different government, it would be a different circumstance. But we're citizens, not subjects. And that's, if it was different, it would be different, but it's not different. It's this way. So we have a Constitution over here, and they've been there for decades. So if you want one, you can get one.
Decades.
But on page 21 of the Constitution, because we have to talk about our government. So the government goes along with the Bible pretty well. The Bible talks about the government a lot. So we have to talk about our government. So the Constitution is the law of the land. The people are the king. We are the kings of this land. And we are the higher powers. And not the states, not the president, not Congress. But if you go to page 21 in your Constitution, it has the starting of the amendments to the Constitution, and this Constitution that we're under, which is ordained by God, clearly seen in Romans chapter 13, clearly says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Can't get much clearer than that. We have authority by the Bible to live under this government and to live under this Constitution, and there's a reason why the founders wrote that in the Constitution. We'll get to that a little bit later. So the people wrote the Constitution to recognize the God-given natural right and obligation of every person to arm themselves with any means they wish. Any means they wish. Okay, we saw that with Abram, where he armed his people. He armed himself with the weapons of the day. Okay, with any means they wish. Okay, not any means you need, any means you wish. You should not have to go to the government, which you instituted, which you made. You made this government. You shouldn't have to go running back to them and say, oh, please, can I have a weapon? No. If anything, you should go back to the government and say, you can't have the weapons. Okay? If anything, we should be saying to the military, you can't have weapons because we think you've gone too far. You need to disband some of the, you need to throw some of those weapons in the water or whatever. You need to get rid of them. If anything, I mean, what was it, at the founding of the United States, they didn't even think that military colleges were constitutional, which they are. I'm not saying that they're not, they are. Constitutional and necessary. The military is designed to protect our sovereignty, not to oppress our people. We are the military. We join the military, we come out of the military, we arm the military, we pay the military to protect us. Okay? We are the government. We are the governing force in this land. The government should not give you permission to have any type of firearm. If they do, it's satanic. Okay? What you should do, government should not give you permission you should just do it. Okay? You have the right already. The government shouldn't be there to tell you that you can have a weapon or not have a weapon. You already have that right. The Constitution clearly recognizes it. And these laws where you have to go down and get a permit to carry a concealed weapon are unconstitutional. And they should be changed.
But you do that, right? But you do have.
I do have a permit to have a, be, if at all possible, live peaceably. Come on. But I know several people who don't. And they carry a constitution with them and say, this is my permit. So there you go. Okay, so we got Romans 13. So go to number 5 is Psalm 82. Go to Psalm 82. This one convicted me, man. Psalm 82. I read this because I was wavering. I was like, man, maybe those leftists are right. Oof. Yeah, that's what I think all day long. Psalm 82, verse 3. It says, defend the poor and fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and needy, deliver the poor and needy, rid them out of the hand of the wicked. So this is not talking about giving them food. That has to be clear because it says, deliver the poor and needy, rid them out of the hand of the wicked. But did the wicked take their food? Yeah, the wicked take their food. Do the wicked oppress them? Yes, the wicked oppress them. This brings up questions. How are we supposed to defend and deliver anyone from the wicked when we don't have guns? How are we supposed to defend our families? How are we supposed to defend people walking by? What was it? The other day I was out pushing my milk up this hill. It was terrible. These people, they're like, oh, we want milk on top of that mountain up those stairs. I'm like, really? How much do you want? We want a truckload. You can't get a truck up there. Yeah. Get huffing. It's only 3,000 steps. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I got to get my steps in. But Fitbit, Anyway, so you take your milk up there. So I was pushing this milk up this hill, and I saw this one dude. He was like yelling at this woman as they were walking, and he was yelling at her pretty bad. And they got into a heated argument. She was like walking, and she was yelling back and stuff like that. And I was like, man, this is gonna turn violent. Do you know what I did? Kept on pushing because I didn't have my gun. I couldn't do anything. I just went in the store. I don't know what happened to them. I don't know. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't defend it. I couldn't defend. Let's say that he, took her out back and beat her up. I couldn't do anything. What? He was a big dude. I'm a big dude, but what can I do? I don't want to fight. I don't fight. So that doesn't happen. I hate fighting. So good. Let's see. Up in James. Was it chapter 1, verse 27? So defend the poor and defend the poor and fatherless. That's what it says. But up in James, chapter 1, verse 27, we have a cross-reference to that. It says, pure religion pure religion and undefiled before God. Am I reading right? Pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and the widows in their affliction and to keep himself unspotted from the world. So this is what convicted me because I was going to leave my gun up here in Ohio, and I was like, man, I really just want to get on that car and go see my mom and go to the beach and all that kind of stuff. But it convicted me because if I was going to be a good Christian and if I was going to be unspotted from the world, I should take the time to arm myself. Because I can't defend my daughter if something bad happens to her. I will fight, and the situation that I was talking about, I could see that they were going to be okay, but I was thinking in my mind, how do I get out of here? How do I leave? Because if this turns bad, that I'm gonna have to do something. And the first thing that I want to do is run. I just want to get out of that situation. I don't run very well either. I don't fight, and I don't run. I don't know if you guys ever seen me run. It's like, I don't know, you ever watch those National Geographic things where you see elephants run? You ever seen an elephant run? You watch the Jungle Book?
I watched Jumanji.
I'm going to tell you this. Elephants don't run very far, but they can sprint for a little bit. And I can get out of here real quick. Seen a fat man run before me, I'll tell you what. It's fun. But when I go over there and I'll huff and puff and die. We have this, while I'm on vacation, actually while I'm leaving, I'll be in North Carolina, I'll be out of the state, so come rob my house. But here, I haven't told you the date, so don't tell them. So
Sorry, guys.
while I'll be out of state, my company is actually they're gonna do this 5K marathon thing, and I was like, man, I really want to do that 5K, but you know what? I'm gonna be at the beach that weekend, so I can't. I'm sorry. So that's kind of how that is. But anyway, that convicted me because there is no way that I will be able to defend the poor and the fatherless if I don't have a firearm. There's no way I'll be able to defend my family. There's no way, I can tell you stories about when I did use, because I did have a weapon, I was able to defend people. But we won't get into that. But I can tell you that there are times when, because I did have a weapon, I would help people because, I would come home from work at, 2 o'clock in the morning and there would be people in trouble and I'd stop and help them. I wouldn't do that if I wasn't armed. You should not do that unless you're armed. You should not stop and help anybody. Call the police, tell them there's somebody stranded on the side of the road. Don't just stop and help anybody. You got a question? I'm sorry. Or statement?
Just I can teach you how to box.
You can teach me how to box. I don't fight. There's a problem there. Because
I mean, I don't like to fight.
okay, have you ever been punched in the face?
Very hard, yes.
Very hard. You've been punched in the face very hard. Does it hurt?
Oh, yeah.
A little bit. Did it hurt the first time? Did it hurt the second
Yeah,
time? It does still. It still hurts, but I don't like getting hurt. So I'm just gonna shoot you. Sorry. I don't fight. There's. My dad said that if you ever get into a fight, just kill him because it hurts too much. It's pretty face. It's not going to box. I can tell you that much. No,
One of the
but
reasons we love them. We want to go to heaven.
that's right because it doesn't hurt anymore. So, when you go to heaven, it don't hurt. It don't hurt anymore. So we gotta move along. So we're getting pretty late. So verse the next one. Go up to Luke chapter 22. So this is a very famous passage that people cite all the time for why you should arm yourself. And I had to look at it and I had to say, well, is this really talking about what it's talking about? Is this really talking about a Christian arming themselves? So if you read, I'll just read it for you real quick. Luke 22:35. It says, he said unto them, when I sent you without purse, and that's the language they use. Okay, men back then carried purses. They didn't have pockets. So I have a tactical purse. Bring it up. Show me. Come on, bring it up in my bag. This is what you call a tactical purse. Okay, see all this webbing and stuff like that, where you can put your knives and stuff like that. Yeah, in cool pockets. It's a tactical. It's a satchel. Like Indiana Jones carried a purse.
You got a whip in there?
Because I'm better than you. Okay.
I feel like
So-
a purse.
Anyway, it's good for purses are good for carrying stuff. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is he's not being effeminate by carrying a purse. It's 2,000 years ago. They hadn't invented pockets yet. So
Poor souls.
people learn history. Okay, purse or script and shoes. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so when I sent you without purse or script or shoes, lacked ye anything? The answer, of course, is no. And they said nothing. We didn't lack anything. Why did they not lack anything? Keep that in mind because they're in a different dispensation. They're actually they're actually, Jesus come along and instituting the kingdom age, the kingdom. So when the kingdom of heaven's coming down. And so they don't lack anything because Jesus is with them. So that Jesus went, what does he do? He goes down to the river. He says, hey, I forget, did he go down the river or did he send somebody down the river? And then they pull gold out of a fish's mouth to pay their taxes. I mean, he's like, I'll pay my temple tax even though I'm the God of the temple that you're worshiping, but I'll pay the temple tax just so there's no problem. And so he pays the temple tax, bam. He gets, they don't lack anything because Jesus is there, he can do the miracles. So verse 36, it says, they said unto them, but now he that hath a purse, let him take it, and likewise his scrip, and he that hath no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one. So sell all your stuff and buy a sword, is what it's saying. Why did he say that? Why did he say, because they didn't lack anything, why did he say that? Why did he say go and sell all your stuff? Well, the reason is because of what's going to happen that night. If you read on, what happens that night is not that people are coming along and going to take Jesus. Because if you read up in verse 50, Peter actually cuts a dude's ear off, and then Jesus says, no, don't do that. And he puts the guy's ear back on. Well, it's not because of that. It's not because people are coming along and going to take Jesus. It's because Jesus dies the next day. He's put up on the cross and crucified. And what Jesus was saying is, I'm not going to be here anymore to protect you. I'm not going to be here anymore to defeat you. So what he's doing is he's saying, go get a sword because you're going into a different dispensation. Right. That's basically what he's saying. There's no, it's proven because of verse 50. Go up to verse 50. So it's not for what's going on that night. It's for what happens the next day, which is the death on the cross. What happens when Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead? We're in the dispensation of grace. There you go. Different dispensation. And look at verse 50. It says, and one of them smote the servant of the high priest. That one of them is Peter, idiot. And cut off his right ear. And Jesus answered and said, suffer ye thus far. And he touched his ear and healed him. So go to the cross-reference for that. That's I have it written down here. Go to John chapter 18. We'll just read the cross-reference. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John chapter 18. This is where, because it didn't say Peter's name anywhere in there, this is where they find out that it actually is Peter. And they named the beast. John 18, verse 10. It says, and Simon Peter, having a sword, why did he have a sword? Because Jesus told him to have a sword. Having a sword, drew it, and smote the high priest's servant, and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. Then said Jesus unto Peter, what did he say? Put up thy sword into thy sheath. The cup which my Father hath given me, shall I not drink it? So these guys are supposed to come along and take it, is what he's saying. So he says, put your sword away. Well, why did Jesus say, well, arm yourself with swords, and then say, put your swords away? Because it wasn't for the kingdom. It wasn't for the kingdom age. It was for this dispensation, the one that we're in right now, the dispensation of grace. Has the rapture happened yet? No.
Not yet.
So we're not in the tribulation. So we're going by what Jesus said to do. Go sell your stuff and go get yourself a gun, not a high point. You can get yourself a good gun under $250 today. That's don't buy a high point. I don't endorse those. Some people love them. Some people go to war with them. Crazy. But a year ago I would say you can't get a good gun for less than $250. Today you can go down to Vance's and buy yourself a very good firearm for less than $250. Very good. The technology has come a long way in the last 12 months. So, and that's a local gun store, vances.com. You can go there and buy all your firearm needs. Boating, sporting. They even sell clothing. And what else do they want me to say? Oh, they sell candles. They sell nice, pretty little candles. And, hunting and archery. Dances, www.dances.com. Hashtag sponsor, yeah. No, I just love them. They really in Central Ohio, I haven't seen lower prices. They sell all new guns. Okay, so go to, so that's your Bible verse right there. That's number 6. Number 7, your 7th Bible verse is 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 20. So you're probably thinking, well, I know that one. What the world does that have to do with anything? If you're a student of the Bible at all, you're probably wondering where I'm going with this. So, 1 Timothy says, O Timothy, keep that which is committed unto thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science falsely so called, which some professing have erred concerning the faith. Grace be with thee. Amen. Okay, so number 7 is a big one because this is where we get practical. Okay, we don't have a lot of time to get into practicalities, but science falsely so called. So if you go on the internet and you go watch Vox, they'll talk about gun issues or whatever, and they will take the same numbers and they will skew those numbers. One of the things I turned on a Vox video after I read a couple books.
You clarify, you're talking about
Vox, V-O-X, Vox. It's not Fox News. Not Fox News, but Vox. Fox News even puts up weird numbers. But Vox, one of the first points they made is that during the assault weapons ban, the number of mass shootings dropped, and then after the assault weapons ban, it was from 1994 to 2004. They said, well, mass shootings dropped, and then they went back up after the assault weapons ban was lifted, and then people could go out and get assault weapons again, or what they call assault weapons. Which, going by the numbers that they cherry picked, it's true. The numbers, what they said though, what this lady on Vox said, was that a mass shooting was 6 or more people being shot in a public area. Which, if you know anything about statistics in the gun world, you know that nobody classifies a mass shooting as 6 or more. The CDC and the FBI classify it as 3 or more. So you go back and you look at 3 or more the whole time. Not 3 or more up until 1994, and then 6 or more from 1994 until 2004, and then 3 or more again. Because the mass shootings will go down if it's 6 or more, because that's you dropped 3 people off of there. And so 6 or more, yeah, the mass shootings will go down if that's how, but nobody defines a mass shooting as 3 or more. So so you have science falsely so called. These people lie to you. Okay, if you just look at the numbers, you go on the CDC website and look at defensive shootings. You can look and see that there are nearly 500,000 to 3 million defensive uses of a firearm every year in the United States. Do you know how many people are murdered with firearms in the United States every year? Murdered. I'm talking about somebody who goes and intentionally kills something in an unlawful manner. It's about 12,000. In the entire nation, it's about 12,000, which is a tragedy. So to save those 12,000 lives, they want to take your guns away. Well, the problem is you're going to use that gun. You're nearly 10 times more likely to use that firearm in a defensive manner than somebody is to actually attack you in any way at all, or to attack anybody anyway. So, so there's several reasons why you should have a firearm. The science, the truth that can be tested is with the man of God being armed at all times. You should be armed at all times. It's there in the Bible, but the science actually clearly says that you should be. And the reason why is because it just makes the room that you're in instantly safer. If whatever room you walk into, that room becomes a a safe space, you might say. So we'll just run through some stuff real quick.
Safe space.
A safe space, yeah, it makes it a safe space. So we won't even talk about Madison or anything like that. So we'll go down to one of my favorite statistics. So I don't know if you guys know this or not, but in the last 50 years, 98% of mass shootings have been in gun-free zones. 98%. Okay, now if you think about that, there's one that wasn't in a gun-free zone. So I think there was one or two in 50 years. So how many of you, one of the most famous ones that I just find staggering is the Aurora movie theater shooter. His name was James Holmes. You guys remember the Aurora movie theater where it was the Batman shooter? Yeah, the Batman shooter. So if you think about 98%, that's intentional. That gets into the area of intentional. It's like how many times do you skip a meal? Well, most of the time you eat. So you intentionally eat. If you skip the meal, most likely it would be intentional. You intentionally skip the meal or that kind of thing. You intentionally eat. Well, these shooters intentionally go to gun-free zones. They intentionally go to schools. They intentionally go to movie theaters with the little stickers on them. Do you know that James Holmes, I think I wrote down the wrong number, I said 8, but I think it was 6. I'm going to change that. I forget I was reading a book about it. But it's either 4 or 6. James Holmes passed. So if you think about what James Holmes was trying to do, he was trying to kill as many people as he could as quickly as possible without them defending themselves. So what he did was, where he lived, he actually, in Aurora, he passed 6 other movie theaters that were larger and closer to his house. You got to keep that in mind. This guy was on a suicide mission, but he wanted to kill as many people as he could. You would go to the larger movie theater, wouldn't you, if you wanted to kill more people? Go to a bigger stadium if you want to kill more people. Well, he passed 6 of the movie theaters that were larger. He went to a 16, it was a 16 screen. Obviously we have like 24s and 32s and millions of screens now. So, but he passed 6 other movie theaters. Why did he go to the one that he went to? Can you guess why?
Gun-free zone.
It was a gun-free zone. That's right. It had the little stickers. Now, you wouldn't know that by watching the news, but you actually just have to go. You can go on Google Earth and you can look at the thing. You can look and you can see the gun-free zone. The researcher who did this, he actually had to go there and say, "Hey, do you have a gun? Do you have a little sticker?" Yeah. It was never reported that it was a gun-free zone. And then he went to the other movie theaters and said, do you guys allow firearms in here? It's like, well, we don't really allow it, but we don't have little stickers because that would, because we don't really care. Well, if you don't have a little sticker that says you can't have firearms, that means you can take a firearm in there. I don't know if you guys know that or not. So if it doesn't have a clearly marked sticker that's at about eye level, kind of like a bathroom signs, those are all regulated. Well, the little sticker signs are regulated. If it's down too far, you go walk in. It's not clearly marked. So, don't, but, if you notice it, just leave. But he went to a smaller movie theater where he could kill less people because he knew that he would be able to kill more people.
Nobody would shoot back.
Because nobody would shoot back. It was intentional. Killers look for soft targets. They don't look for hard targets. Killers aren't dumb. So this is a big problem that I have with the media, is they believe that every mass murderer is an idiot. They're not idiots. The average mass murderer will plan their shooting 6 months in advance. Average. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter, but the statistics spell out that it's about 6 months in advance. And they're not dumb. Most have high IQs. You think about the movies that you watch. Hannibal Lecter, was he dumb? No, they made a movie about a mass murderer who ate people who was highly intelligent. It happens. These guys aren't dumb. Okay, so I've got 2 minutes. We'll close in 2 minutes. Let's talk about Australia, which doesn't exist. But
yes, that's true.
Australia, in 1996, instituted a mandatory buyback program, which is basically a firearms ban. They had 7% of their population owned some type of firearm. And in 1996. Well, they ran some numbers on it, and from 1996 to 2006, what was supposed to happen was that number 7% was supposed to go down to 0, but it went down to 3 5 years later, or almost instantly. And then a little bit further, it went back up. In 2006, it went back up to 7%. They haven't done a thing, because you could have some type of firearm in Australia, but they took all the ones that were really cool. So what was supposed to happen is if you were a liberal researcher, you would look at the rate and you would say, well, from 1996, you should see a dip, because if firearms cause murders, you should see the number go down dramatically in 1996 or 1997, and then steadily rise back up. And what actually happened was the rate went down and then kept on going down. Do you know why it went down and kept on going down? Because if you go back, the rate was really high, and it was already going down and then went down. They won't tell you that, though. They won't tell you that from the 80s, the rate's been dropping dramatically. Even in the United States, the murder rates have been dropping. And actually, even the numbers. We have a population now that is, we have about 100 million more people in the United States now than we did back in the 1980s, but we still have less murders. Less the actual number. Actual number's gone down. The world, the United States is actually safer than it was back in the 80s. The actual, not just the rate, the actual number. So the rates have dropped dramatically. And so what actually happened was, yeah, in Australia, the murder rate just kept on going down. And so the gun ban did absolutely nothing. It didn't help, it didn't hinder, because Australia's a homogenous island of basically white people and then natives. So they don't really like to kill people anyway. So if guns were the problem, the rate should have gone down, and then it should have gone back up, because it went from 7% down to 3%, down to back up to 7. So just a couple, just the last fact. There are now 390 million firearms in public hands, private citizens, 390 million firearms in the United States. Yet the murder rate keeps dropping. That's 10 years ago, there weren't that many firearms in the United States. But the murder rate keeps going down. Guns are not the problem. The science is on our side. From the 90s, the murder rate is dramatically decreasing, because of laws and stuff like that. Now, another cool number that I found was that there are only 3 million, I think there's less than 3 million firearms in the hands of the military in the United States. So there's less, the United States military actually holds less than 1% of the firepower of the public. Just to keep that in mind, it's dramatic. It's a dramatic change. There's 1.2 firearms in the United States for every man, woman, and child. So that every baby born can have 1.2 firearms from the time they're born, and everybody can still have a gun. So 1.2. There are 10 times more firearms in the United States than there are dogs.
Wow.
Yeah, and the murder rate still keeps dropping. The fact is, to follow the Bible, you must be armed and ready to defend the weak from the wicked, just like Abram was. Abram was able to defend the weak from the wicked. So let's pray and let's get out of here. Lord, thank you for this opportunity to teach, and I apologize for going way too long again. But it's a subject that I'm very passionate about. Lord, please help the people to arm themselves and to be a safety force to promote life in this world, and to help the poor and help the weak, and to defend the people from the wicked. And Lord, open their hearts to the truth that the Bible clearly lays out, that in this dispensation they should be armed, and armed all the time, for safety and for security. And they should not rely on the government to protect them, which is a force not for good, Lord. We know that your people are a force for good, and they know what to do. Lord, help them to not believe the satanic lies of these unbelievers who try to throw these lying facts around. Help them to understand, Lord. Father, be with all the prayer requests. Lord, bless the people. Keep them safe on the way home. In Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
We don't really have time for questions, but if you want a question, go ahead.
When seconds count, the police are only minutes away. You get that?
Yes.
When seconds count, the police are only minutes away.
That should
She's
be
just
disturbing.
unhappy because it's over. So soon.
She liked Daddy talking.
All right, you're dismissed, but feel free to hang out and fellowship for a while. What was Ramon doing?
I was trying to be like, read a lesson.
Yeah, good stuff. Interesting. Sure. Just like you did. Some people are trying to say it should be in the Bible. It was written, at least most of them.
Good idea. For every fire. Yes.
Get over your selfies. Kind of a memory of myself. Anyway, see you guys. We love you. Bye. Have a great night. And get a gun.
We know.